On a très peur, on est à un moment où nos marges sont très contractées, donc l'agriculture elle n'est pas très rentable en ce moment, elle ne l'est pas très souvent et elle l'est encore moins en ce moment. Et donc on a peur d'une concurrence déloyale sur les prix. On a peur de l'importation dans l'Union européenne de produits qui ne respectent pas nos normes et notre qualité à des prix qui sont bradés. On survit à peine, mais pourtant le prix du pain pour les consommateurs, il n'a pas baissé, quoi. Ça fait 3 ans, le prix des produits en supermarché, il continue d'augmenter depuis le Covid et depuis la guerre en Ukraine, alors que nos prix de vente à nous se sont effondrés. Et par ailleurs, nous, nos prix d'achat, donc nos engrais par exemple, les produits phyto, ben, en même temps ils augmentent. Donc nous vraiment on subit une contraction des marges, de nos marges économiques, et le consommateur il voit une réduction de son pouvoir d'achat. Donc ça veut dire qu'il y a quelque part dans cette équation, il y a des intermédiaires qui s'en mettent plein les fouilles, et c'est ça qui est dégueulasse. Donc c'est ça qui est terrible en fait, c'est que le monde agricole n'avait pas confiance de base dans Ursula von der Leyen, on n'a plus confiance depuis longtemps dans les institutions européennes et c'est triste. Et maintenant en fait on se sent abandonné par l'Europe quand elle remet en question ces critères-là, de développement durable ou de soutien aux agriculteurs, pour se tourner maintenant uniquement vers le libre-échange et les exportations. Et on est vraiment convaincu qu'en Europe, personne n'en sortira gagnant, que pour le consommateur, ce sera une augmentation... ça ne va rien changer, ce ne sera pas une augmentation des tarifs, mais les prix au supermarché ne vont pas baisser, nos prix de vente à nouveau s'écrouler, et ce sera des intermédiaires au milieu qui vont s'en mettre plein les poches, quoi.
Certainly the EU did not make this agreement for the agriculture and food sector. It is a deal which has been negotiated over 25 years. We consider that it is a deal which brings unfair competition and social dumping, as it is not protecting the environment nor improving working conditions of the workers in the Mercosur countries, and it puts our agriculture and food sector here in Europe our high and further strain. We don't see effective protection for our sensitive sectors. We need to compete with a region which is not producing under the same standards, if it is from a food safety perspective, from a social and labor perspective, from an environmental perspective, and we fear that this will have as well consequences on the workers in Europe losing their jobs. And we see really relevant risks for our sectors with potential negative consequences on employment, on the workers and working conditions. And we don't see the Mercosur agreement neither raising labour and environmental standards actually in the Mercosur countries. And we see the risk that it would undermine local value chain stability. They cannot compete if you look at it from a purely economic perspective. Because, the products which will come in from the Mercosur countries will be cheaper. But they can compete from other perspectives. If we look at sustainability and health, for example. Because, in Europe, of course, we have much higher standards with regard to food safety, with regard to the environment. So if we think, for example, about pesticides, but as well with regard to social matters, so the working conditions, for example. So there is no level playing field between the EU and Mercosur, but we can, well, here we can compete on higher and with higher standards. Well, the EU should have ensured that this agreement brings a level playing field. So they should have ensured that actually the standards which we have in the EU have as well to be applied to the products coming into the EU. Because then, of course, if it's the farmers or if it's the food production, would have competed on the same level. So a level playing field, the reciprocity of standards, but it would have been extremely important to ensure with that agreement as well policy coherence. So if we look at sustainability, if we look at fair labor standards, there is no coherence. So what we do with that agreement is that we erode our own rights, our own standards. What would have really been needed would have been as well that there should have been, with the pressure coming from the EU to sign such an agreement, there would have been a possibility to improve as well the labor and environmental standards in the Mercosur countries. We always ask as effort that if we do an FTA, that there are actually for example, the ILO standards need to be enforceable. So we look at the TSD chapters, it's the Trade and Sustainable Development chapters, they need to be enforceable. And again, here with Mercosur, we have an agreement where they are not, because there are no sanctions linked to the enforcement of the chapters. So all these are points which could have made this agreement much more interesting as well for the workers in our sectors. Of course, nowadays everybody speaks about red tape, about deregulation, and about administrative burden. I would say this is not the issue that should be discussed here. The issue we should discuss is the unequal treatment and the unfair wealth distribution we actually have in the agriculture and food sector. Why should we speak about that? Is because we are here speaking about sectors which are already for the workers very precarious. We have very poor working conditions in these sectors. We have low wages. So it is on top of it times in which restructurings in our sectors are growing. We are closing farms, we are closing food production sites, and people lose their jobs. So we should speak about the concerns and the fears of these workers, and not if a piece of law is red tape or not. So we really see an imbalance in the wealth distributions between the vulnerable people across the food chain. Those are predominantly small farmers, and even more, of course, the agricultural workers. But it is nevertheless a sector where we have as well big winners, which are the multinationals, the retailers and the shareholders of food giants. They make good money. But we have as well the losers, as I said before. And it puts really pressure on small farmers and the agricultural workers. And that is as well linked to very systemic issues we have in that sector, which needs to be solved, like the concentration of big agri-food monopolies across the food chain, and which then put the small farmers under pressure, and we face then their disappearance, and with that as well the loss of jobs for our workers.